This is not just the story of a country. It is the living footprint of an ancient civilization that is wise, complex, and full of contrasts. A nation as beautiful as it is controversial, where women must cover their faces with veils, while certain privileged individuals can marry for hours to maintain relationships, while respecting extreme laws. In this new video from Uncensored World, we will travel through Iran, a country where women are now banned from doing almost everything, even though not so long ago they wore miniskirts, danced in nightclubs, and studied whatever they wanted. This freedom disappeared overnight after a series of events that you are about to discover. A journey of discovery, where you will learn about the profound duality of a nation that is home to women considered among the most beautiful in the world, but where dancing in public can be a crime, and a kiss can be punished with lashes, or even with your life. Under the watchful eye of a feared body, the morality police, who monitor not only clothing, but also dating, internet access, and even smiles on the street. A country of extremes, home to the hottest desert on the planet, where the ground reaches over 70 degrees Celsius, over 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and where more than 2,000 years ago, ingenious natural air conditioning systems were developed by storing ice under the dunes. A land of multicolored mountains that look like something out of a fantasy painting, with the longest salt cave and some of the most beautiful mosques in the world, where mud and dung villages have survived for millennia, and whose coastline is home to the Strait of Hormuz, a geostrategic point through which more than 20% of the planet's oil flows, and which, if blocked, would shake the world. Get ready to discover the true nation of the Arabian Nights, a place as magical as it is challenging, full of stories, contrasts, and truths that you won't find in tourist brochures. Let's get started. In the beating heart of the Middle East, hidden among ancient mountains and seemingly endless burning deserts, lies Iran, a land as beautiful as it is magical, as real as it is legendary. A country that seems to have stepped out of the pages of a Persian tale, with a past divided between legends and ancient ruins, and a present struggling to find its place in the modern world. Iran borders no less than 7 nations: Iraq and Turkey to the west, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Turkmenistan to the north, Afghanistan and Pakistan to the east. To the south, its coasts are caressed by the waters of the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. This location has made it a key geostrategic point for centuries, a true crossroads between Asia, Europe, and the Arab world. It is also a fundamental and strategic place today, as you will see later. Despite its large territory, Iran is not densely populated. With a population of over 80 million, its density is very low compared to other countries of its size. To give you an idea, Iran has an area more than 3 times that of Spain, or approximately twice that of countries such as Venezuela or Colombia. However, much of its territory is made up of deserts and uninhabited mountainous areas, which greatly limits population concentration. One of the main reasons for this is its extreme geography, a reality that has shaped both the character of its people and the course of its history. This country is home to one of the most extreme places on the planet, the Dashti Lut Desert. This is no ordinary desert. In 2005, NASA detected the highest surface temperature ever recorded on Earth here, over 70 degrees Celsius, equivalent to over 158 degrees Fahrenheit. In these conditions, almost no living thing could survive for more than a few minutes. Dashti Lut, also known as the Lut Desert, is an ocean of sand and rock where life seems to have given up. There are no permanent human settlements, although some scientific expeditions and nomadic tribes have managed to cross it. But Iran is not just desert. This country of extremes is also home to green mountains, fertile valleys, and tranquil coastlines. It is a land of contrasts, where fire and ice can coexist just a few miles apart, and where the seasons are experienced completely differently depending on the region. For thousands of years, people have settled in this land in villages made of adobe. a material formed from a mixture of mud, water, straw, and sometimes even animal excrement, dried in the sun. These constructions not only serve to withstand the passage of time, as they have proven, but above all to keep houses cool in summer and warm in winter, in the face of this relentless climate. One of the most famous examples of these ancient adobe villages is the town of Yazd, where thousands of people still live in these traditional structures today. These adobe villages, molded from mud, straw, and the heat of the sun, have been silent witnesses to empires that rose and fell, invasions and rebirths, ancient wisdom, and eternal poetry. Iran, known in ancient times as Persia, was the cradle of one of the most influential and enduring civilizations in human history, the legendary Persian Empire. Under the visionary leadership of figures such as Cyrus the Great, who is remembered as one of the first rulers to declare human rights, and Darius, who organized one of the most advanced administrative systems of his time, the Persian Empire stretched from the Indus Valley to the shores of the Aegean Sea. It was a pioneering civilization in many fields: medicine, astronomy, philosophy, engineering, and the arts. Libraries, observatories, and hanging gardens flourished in its cities, and its scholars inspired both the Greeks and later Islamic civilizations. In fact, a little-known curiosity is that the Persians were among the first to use natural refrigeration or air conditioning with structures called yakhchals, huge underground reservoirs where they stored ice even in the 6th century middle of summer, an amazing feat of ancient engineering for the time, as these structures began to be used more than 2,000 years ago during the 5th century BC, long before the invention of any modern cooling system. But this nation of wisdom has also experienced moments of profound transition. The arrival of Islam in the 7th century marked a radical change in its identity. Although today the vast majority of Iranians profess Shiite Islam, there are also Sunni, Christian, Jewish, and even Zoroastrian minorities living in the country. Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions, was the dominant faith in Persia for centuries. Its beliefs, centered on the eternal struggle between good and evil, the final judgment, and the worship of fire as a symbol of purity, are still alive in small temples where sacred fires have burned continuously for generations, and probably have a lot to do with the character of many of the country's inhabitants. In Iran, Shia Islam eventually became the official religion. This branch of Islam, which is more traditional and structured in social and legal aspects than other branches, gave Iran a very particular religious and political identity within the Islamic world. It is interesting to understand what this variant of Islam means, as the country's secretive nature in terms of social norms probably has a lot to do with it. There are two main branches of Islam, Sunni and Shia. Both believe in the same God called Allah and follow the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, but they split many centuries ago because they could not agree on who should lead Muslims after the Prophet's death. The Sunnis believed that it should be someone chosen by the community, while the Shiites believed that it should be a member of the family of the Prophet Muhammad. Over time, each group developed different traditions and customs. Today, most Muslim countries are Sunni, but Iran is the largest country with a Shiite majority. In Shia Islam, religious leaders, called ayatollahs, have a very strong role and are seen almost as spiritual guides, but at the same time they also exercise political power. This means that their voice is very important not only in religion, but also in the laws of the country. That is why, in Iran, Shia religion is not confined to mosques, but is intertwined with the government and controls many social norms. This may explain why the rules are so strict, especially for women. What religious leaders say becomes law. This brings us to one of the most controversial realities of this country: what has happened to its society, especially to its women. Today, Iran is one of the countries with the most restrictions on women. But it wasn't always like this. Just a few decades ago, it was common to see women in miniskirts, with their hair down and books under their arms, on their way to university to become doctors, engineers, or teachers. They were as free as men and their possibilities were limitless. This reality changed radically, not only because of religious decisions, but also because of the power games between politicians, kings, and the ayatollahs you have just met. Everything is deeply linked to Iran's fascinating and turbulent recent history. Until 1979, Iran was a monarchy. Under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the country underwent rapid modernization. At that time, women were not only allowed to dress as they pleased, without veils, wearing makeup, or in bikinis, but also held positions in science, medicine, engineering, and politics. Nightlife in Iran was vibrant. There were bars, concerts by European and American artists, movie theaters showing Hollywood films, and gender-neutral parties. Iran was trying to resemble modern countries such as France and Germany, and at times, it succeeded. But that transformation came at a cost, as for many conservative sectors, especially religious ones, that freedom was synonymous with decadence and a loss of Islamic identity. Discontent also grew because before the monarchy, there was a period of parliamentary institutions and political participation, a model with which many Iranians felt better represented and listened to. But that period was interrupted by coups, foreign pressure, and finally the concentration of absolute power in the hands of the Shah. Although the Shah promoted modernization, he also ruled authoritatively. He dissolved parties, persecuted opponents, controlled the media, and restricted politics. This also helped fuel the desire for revolution. It was in that same year, 1979, that discontent erupted. Religious leader Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile and led a revolution that overthrew the Shah. In those days, millions took to the streets under the same banner, celebrating the end of the monarchy. And although many women actively participated in that revolution, believing that the new government would protect them, in less than a year their rights began to vanish, and the veil went from being a choice to an obligation. Women lost their right to be judges. Their testimony in court began to be worth half that of a man. Dance, music, women's sports, beauty contests, Western movies, everything was banned. Those who dared to protest were censored, imprisoned, or exiled. This is how Iran became a theocracy. In Iran, religion became the center of power, and the ayatollahs decided on all aspects of public and private life. Today, the heir to the overthrown throne, Reza Pahlavi, has called on the people and the security forces to rebel against the regime. With this, Iran's past and present clash once again. And we are left to wonder, can a country that once knew freedom regain it? We would love to hear your opinion, because as you can see, in Iran, the veil does not only cover the hair, it also covers the memory of a people who were once free. This religious background has influenced both the laws and the culture. Over time, some extreme interpretations of religion have led to very restrictive rules that still affect everyday life, especially in areas such as dress, interaction between men and women, and freedom of expression. Despite these restrictions, Iranians have managed to keep alive their passion for beauty, art, and poetry. Iranian architecture is some of the most beautiful in the world, with mosques covered in impossibly colorful mosaics, sky blue domes, and courtyards that exude peace. The name Iran comes from Aryanam, meaning land of the Aryans, a term dating back to the ancient Indo-European tribes that inhabited this region. The official change from Persia to Iran was made in 1935, during the reign of Reza Shah, to emphasize its ethnic heritage. Today, the country continues to face both internal and external challenges, but its ancient soul, woven between scorching deserts, eternal mountains, and immortal verses, remains intact. As you will discover, Iran is undoubtedly a country of unique contrasts, a place with curiosities as surprising as they are enigmatic, which you will now learn about before delving into its most controversial laws and the realities that coexist with its extraordinary history. To begin with, let's take a closer look at one of the most crucial points for the world's economic stability that belongs to this country, the Strait of Hormuz. This strait, located between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, is a narrow passage through which more than 20% of the world's oil passes. It is a bottleneck through which the energy that powers our economies flows. The global dependence on this passage is so great that if Iran, which controls the strait, decided to block it, the consequences would be immediate. If this were to happen, the price of oil would rise dramatically, and with it, gasoline, food, transportation, and even electricity. This is because oil is not only used as fuel, it is a complex mixture of hydrocarbons, highly versatile organic compounds that can be transformed into a huge variety of products. Thanks to its chemical structure, oil can be refined and processed to make plastics, fertilizers, cosmetics, medicines, detergents, synthetic textiles, paints, and more. For all these reasons, everything from the packaging we use every day to car tires, credit cards, household appliances, and even agricultural crops, which also depend on petroleum-based fertilizers, is connected to this natural resource. As a result, any change in its price directly affects the entire production chain, so a sudden price increase due to reduced availability would lead to a general rise in the cost of almost everything around us, causing inflation to skyrocket. In other words, money would be worth less and everything would cost more. That is why a decision made in the Strait of Hormuz could be catastrophic for the global economy, even for countries thousands of miles away. Although its importance is primarily economic, the Strait of Hormuz also boasts unique natural beauty. Along its waters are volcanic islands and landscapes that seem otherworldly. One of the most surprising is the island of Hormuz, famous for its red sand beaches and multicolored mountains. This mineral-rich island is not only a strategic point, but also a little-known natural paradise. Its surreal landscapes are somewhat reminiscent of those of Socotra Island, considered the strangest island on the planet, about which we made a documentary a few weeks ago that you can watch later. With that in mind, we would like to remind you that if you haven't subscribed to Uncensored World yet, now is the time to do so. That way, you won't miss out on interesting documentaries like this one, which not only show you the world through different eyes, but also teach you how it works. Thank you. And speaking of beauty, probably the most beautiful natural environment in Iran is the magical Rainbow Valley. The Rainbow Valley is located on the island of Hormuz, which we mentioned earlier, and its name is no exaggeration. The mountains in this region look like they have been hand-painted. Intense reds, bright yellows, soft greens, deep purples. It's all due to the mineral composition of the soil. Walking along its trails, you feel like you've stepped onto another planet. It is one of the most surreal and colorful landscapes in the world, and a treasure little known outside the region. The combination of its colors and its proximity to the sea make this place a living postcard. And perhaps dazzled by this beauty, the ancient Iranian architects decided to replicate its splendor in religious architecture, creating some of the most ornate mosques on the planet. One of them is the Nasir al-Mulk Mosque, also known as the Pink Mosque. This temple, located in Shiraz, is famous for its colorful stained glass windows that, at sunrise, fill the interior with multicolored lights that look like a living rainbow. Every corner is designed with astonishing artistic precision, mosaics, arabesques, perfect geometries, and an atmosphere that invites silence and contemplation. Few architectural experiences compare to sitting inside at dawn and watching the dance of light transform the temple into a living work of art. But Iran holds wonders even underground. On the island of Keshem is the longest salt cave on the planet, Namakdan Cave. This place, more than 6 kilometers long, is made up of sea salt, crystallized into natural shapes as strange as they are beautiful. The walls reflect the light in shades of white and pink, while the humid, salty air maintains a coolness that contrasts with the heat outside. And in the midst of such a hostile climate, another surprise: the Asian cheetah lives here. A subspecies, also called the Persian cheetah, it is critically endangered. This cheetah is one of the rarest felines in the world and survives only in certain areas of the Iranian desert. As you can imagine, Life for these animals in the hottest desert in the world is not easy. Temperatures can exceed 70 degrees Celsius, and vegetation is scarce. Even so, this majestic creature has managed to adapt to one of the most extreme environments on the planet. The climate is as extreme as it is lethal, reflecting other types of conditions, social ones. In Iran, laws can be so strict that even a gesture such as a kiss can lead to imprisonment or worse. But before we get to those realities, let's continue discovering more hidden treasures in this country of contrasts. If you're enjoying this trip through Iran, give us a like to encourage us to keep creating content like this every week. Thank you. In Iran, many things that would be perfectly normal in other countries are not allowed here. For example, women are not allowed to show their hair in public, so the mandatory wearing of the veil is a rule for all women, both Iranian and foreign. Failure to comply can result in fines, arrest, or even more severe penalties. In addition, women are not allowed to enter men's sports stadiums, a restriction that has generated much controversy and protest in the country. Even activities as common around the world, as dancing in public, are strictly prohibited for both men and women, but more so for women, as they are considered contrary to the moral norms that govern Iranian society. These rules are part of a very strict legal system based on the most rigid Islamic law, known as Sharia, which regulates everything from clothing to personal behavior. In addition to these laws related to appearance, there are other controversial prohibitions that border on the absurd when viewed alongside others that are completely opposite. For example, homosexuality is not permitted in the country and is considered a crime, with severe punishments. But Iran is one of the few Muslim countries that allows and legally supports gender reassignment, with surgeries that in many cases are even subsidized by the state. Iranian cinema, which is recognized worldwide and has won awards at international festivals, also reflects these tensions. Directors such as Jafar Panahi have won major awards, but at the same time have been censored and imprisoned by the authorities for the social criticism in their works. To ensure compliance with these strict laws, Iran has a special force known as the Morality Police, an institution that many consider shadowy and feared. This police force was created shortly after the Islamic Revolution to monitor compliance with Sharia law in everyday life. Its members patrol the streets and monitor the population, especially women, to ensure compliance with dress codes and public behavior. Fines, arrests, and in some cases very severe or even fatal punishments or consequences are reported in connection with this surveillance. This police force also controls social interactions to prevent behavior considered immoral and has been the focus of numerous controversies due to its methods and rigor. For many, this institution represents the harshest and most visible face of the strict religious interpretation that marks life in Iran. One of the reasons some analysts point to for the harshness of these rules is the importance that Iranian society places on purity and honor, especially with regard to women, who are considered among the most beautiful in the world. However, due to these strict rules, few have the opportunity to see their faces uncovered in public, which adds an aura of mystery and fascination. Among these social norms, there are also exceptions and peculiar realities. For example, in Iran, so-called temporary marriages, known as sighe or nikah muta, are permitted. These legal and short-term marriage contracts allow couples to have intimate relations for a limited time, regulated by law, something that surprises many visitors due to its unusual nature outside the Iranian context. This reality makes it clear that in this country, if you have money or connections, you can get around the law even on issues as fundamental as this one. At this point in the documentary, and before going into the details of this type of marriage, we would like to ask you, would you like to visit Iran? Would you be willing to get married for a few hours? Or do you think it's crazy? What has struck you most about this controversial country? Pause the video and leave us your comments. You know that doing so is the best way to support Uncensored World, so that we can continue working every week to bring you content as interesting as this. So, thank you. Probably one of the most controversial realities both within Iran and among tourists and foreigners is the practice known as temporary marriage, or nikah mut'a. This type of marriage, also sometimes called express marriage, is a union with a limited duration, ranging from a few hours to several days, and is recognized within the Iranian legal framework. These temporary marriages have emerged as a way to circumvent strict laws that prohibit intimate relationships outside of traditional marriage. In Iran, having a relationship without being married can have very severe legal consequences, ranging from fines and arrest to death penalties. This strict control profoundly affects personal life in Iran, to the point that in Iranian cinema, for example, no physical contact between couples is shown, not even between spouses. Nikah mut'a is therefore a unique solution to this reality, a kind of religious contract that allows a couple to unite for a specified period of time, with all the rights and obligations of marriage, but without the long-term commitments. They can marry for hours, days, or weeks and do what would be forbidden if they were not married. Although it may seem strange or controversial to many, this type of union is regulated and legally recognized in Iran, although it is not common in all regions, nor is it accepted by all sectors of society. Express weddings not only reflect the tensions between rigid laws and social reality, but also demonstrate how people seek to adapt to such a restrictive system. On a daily basis, these realities create curious contradictions. While many Iranian influencers showcase a life of luxury and style on social media, they must also navigate very dangerous territory, as promoting behaviors considered immoral, such as wearing flashy makeup, tight clothing, or even dancing, can lead to fines or arrest. And in this country, everything is controlled by the morality police. To maintain this social control and prevent new generations from adopting lifestyles that the regime considers incompatible with its traditional and religious values, internet access has been heavily restricted and monitored for over a decade. Many popular websites and social media platforms are blocked, and the content that citizens can consume is limited to prevent ideas and lifestyles from more liberal societies from influencing Iranian reality. This reflects a society struggling between imposed tradition and new currents of modernity. But even though the regime maintains these strict rules, the social reality is often much more complex. Even so, many young Iranians lead a parallel life to the official one, with private parties, access to technology, and thoughts that are increasingly closer to Western values. This gap between the population and the authorities is growing over the years, giving rise to a country of contrasts that is seeking to modernize. That is why it seems that Iran is slowly turning towards a more balanced life, where people can enjoy the beauty of their country, its ancient culture, and its legends with greater freedom, without renouncing the new times or their roots. If you've come this far, you're probably interested in finding out how to visit Iran, provided that the political and social situation allows you to do so safely, as the country has recently experienced complicated internal conflicts and international tensions. With this in mind, at Uncensored World, we have done some in-depth research, and now we can tell you how to get there and enjoy this beautiful country to the fullest. To get to Iran from America or Europe, the most common way is to fly through major Iranian cities such as Tehran, Shiraz, or Isfahan. From Europe, there are direct flights from cities such as Istanbul or Frankfurt, while from America, there are usually stopovers in Europe or neighboring countries such as Turkey or the United Arab Emirates. As for visas, most European and Latin American citizens need to apply for one before traveling, although Iran has relaxed some policies for tourists from certain countries in recent years, making it easier to obtain visas for short stays. However, it is always essential to check the latest conditions before planning your trip, as they may change due to the political situation. In terms of cost, Iran is one of the cheapest countries to travel to in the Middle East and the world. For example, dinner for two in a mid-range restaurant can cost between $10 and $15, while staying in a comfortable mid-range hotel usually costs around $20 to $40 per night. This is largely due to the low cost of living, the relatively low value of the local currency, the Iranian rial, against the dollar, and the affordability of services and basic goods. It is important to remember that, although Iran is generally a safe country for tourists, this safety depends on there being no conflicts with other countries and visitors respecting local laws and customs. Compliance with rules, from dress codes to restrictions on public behavior, is essential to avoid problems and enjoy your experience in this beautiful country to the fullest. Before traveling, it is also advisable to check official sources and news to ensure that there are no alerts or restrictions in place, as the situation can change quickly due to political or social factors. At Uncensored World, we hope this video has helped you discover Iran, a country that is as fascinating as it is controversial. If so, don't hesitate to give us a like and leave a comment. It's the best way to help us continue working every week to bring you more interesting content like this. Or like this video, which you can watch now to discover another of the most mysterious and beautiful places on Earth. Click on it. You're going to enjoy it.